Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Engage Your Student in a Virtual Environment. Thank you for taking time out and being here today. I'm Emily Park, the Marketing Manager here at McGraw-Hill, Canada, and I'm so excited to be hosting this session today. This session will be focusing on the soft skills in an online environment, and we are offering 3 different types of webinars with a focus in course design, academic integrity, and leveraging digital tools for your online course. So check out these upcoming webinars on mheducation.ca. So I shared the URL to the webinar landing page on the chat window. Before we jump on to today's main topic, I have a few housekeeping items. First, today's 1-hour webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand a few days after this live session. As we have a very large group today, to ensure the best webinar experience, your lines are muted and the videos are deactivated, and the frequently asked questions will be followed up separately after the webinar. So please ask questions via the chat window during the webinar. After today's session, you will receive the follow-up email with the webinar recording, FAQ, and the post-survey link. Your feedback and the suggestion will be very helpful for us to develop other webinar sessions that suit your interest. So now I'm very pleased to introduce today's speaker, Michel Shah. Michel is the Personal and Professional Development Professor at George Brown College. And next slide, please. She is specialized in personal and professional development, bringing astute insight and the pragmatic solutions to the situation involving facilitation, needs assessment, coaching, and knowledge transfer. Michel enjoys storytelling and sharing her ideas with other instructors. So she would love to connect with you all on LinkedIn for further discussion. Her LinkedIn profile is on the slide, or you can simply search Michel Shah on LinkedIn. Okay, then over to you, Michel.
Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who is joining us. I hope you've chosen the most comfortable seats at home for this presentation. Today, I'm going to introduce the concept of the virtual education mix. I adapted the idea from the business concept of a marketing mix. What you will learn from this presentation depends on where you are in your own teaching and learning journey. The objective of this presentation is to share what we know as a community so we can learn together and support each other as we transition to a fully virtual learning environment. In marketing, it's all about the customer. And the 4 Ps refer to the product, the promotion, the price, and the place. In education, it's all about the learner, and the 4 Ps in focus are partnership, purpose, process, and the product. The virtual education mix is a learner-centered approach to online learning. The presentation is divided into 4 sections addressing each of the 4 Ps. I will highlight key skills required to execute in each area. Bear in mind that the 4 Ps are intricately linked together and all work together. Let's begin with partnership. The key skills we need to establish and maintain an effective learning partnership are communication, leadership, networking, and collaboration. You need to communicate. Our roles have to be clearly defined and communicated to all stakeholders for an effective partnership. Let's begin with you. Your learners want to know who you are, what your role is in their learning. You also want to know who your learners are and the role that they will play in the learning experience. You want to know who your key partners are going to be and how you will work together as partners to deliver on the great product that we're here to deliver on. So who are you? When students enter your classroom and there's a stranger now on the screen, they're all looking to you. They want to know how your experiences have shaped the person that they now look up to for leadership for their learning experience, especially in these uncertain times. The part of your story you choose to share should have a lesson that you want to distill to set the tone for openness, for empathy, and for any other value or theme that you want to run through your course. A carefully constructed story that will produce the impact you desire is what you want to share in just a little piece of yourself. I usually share the story of how I got a boy's name. I tell them that I was not born Michel Shah. I was actually born Michel. And that was the name my mother intended, but she asked my aunt to go and register me. And my aunt, by the time she got to the registrar's office, she forgot the last two letters of my name. My mom didn't bother to check until I turned 11 and the Ministry of Education verified my identification. And they realized that my full name is actually Michel Shah and no longer Michel. And so what I try to distill for my students is that over the years of having to help people learn to spell my name correctly or to identify me as a girl when I show up with a boy's name, it's made me learn the importance of taking time to care about someone's name. And I set that tone with them that I actually do care about their names and I want them to pronounce it for me. I want to get it right. I want to spell it right. And it begins a tone in our conversation. The energy of the group shifts immediately because everyone has a story about their name. It's very relatable. And typically, if we're online, the chat box lights up and everybody's busy responding to the story. And it begins a foundation for open and ongoing conversations because that's going to be important to our learning experience throughout the semester. How many of you started thinking about your own name stories? How many of you would like to share them right away? That's how students begin to feel when you start to share your stories. They begin to feel like, I wonder what story I could share, or, oh my, I really need to share this story. When you begin to tell stories, though, I want you to remember three things. Number one, before you tell the story, tell them what story you're about to tell them. Number two, go ahead and tell the story. And then number three, tell them why you told them the story. Don't forget number three. They need to know why the story was told. When we talk about co-creation of a learning experience between you and your learners, this requires you to be agile in course development and in delivery because you need that flexibility and you're going to have to incorporate that great collaboration. This allows students to connect to the course and to connect the course to their personal outcomes. Many of our students are digital natives, but yet some are struggling in this digital space. So when we begin to think about co-creating a learning experience together, it's really about how comfortable are we with being agile, with pivoting and shifting as necessary. There are many resources, so I recommend we use appropriate assessments to identify these needs so that we can design experiences to leverage their strengths and to meet the needs. Try resources such as Forms by Microsoft or Google, and these resources will give you individual as well as summary information and also allow you to download the information in spreadsheets for easy reference. And so you can sort and figure out what really, use it to determine patterns that are happening in your classroom. If you begin by finding out what do they think their role is in the classroom, how would they like to engage? Find out what they course, what assessments they hope to see, what kinds of activities they're hoping to engage in, what kind of partnership they would like to have with their peers, and what partnership they would want to have with you. Consolidate the feedback engage them in conversations about it, and then kind of talk to them about what is possible. What are you willing to pivot to in order to meet their needs? What things can change mid-course, or what things may need to change for the subsequent cohort? As long as the course outcomes are met, of course, students truly value when their ideas are incorporated in that learning experience. They feel like it connects them to the course, and it connects the course to what they're here for. When we transition to the online delivery, it means we're also transitioning how you experience your role and how your learners experience your role, and certainly how you experience their role. An essential element of our role becomes providing leadership and direction for our students, but also for our partners. Different faculty may define their roles differently, so our learners need to understand how you plan to work with them, especially in this context. Ideally, you're able to partner with your students to design learning experiences that are engaging and inspire everyone to learn together. But they need to know whether or not you're going to be someone who is back behind the scenes as a producer of the experience. Are you going to be right up front facilitating it? Are you just referring them? Are you thinking at the systems level? They want to know how those experiences will be constructed. And it becomes a little bit more important because we're online. These things we've done all along, but because we're online now, it becomes even more critical, and it's worthy of our time to remind ourselves of these critical components. Being open about our own experiences and feelings inside the learning environment and being willing to seek support for them and for ourselves is going to be critical here. Making sure that they know whether we are experiencing this learning environment the way that they see it, making sure they know we're open and we're honest about our own feelings. But we need to share our feelings, but we also need to make sure that we're not presenting ourselves as being unprepared, unorganized, or unprofessional. That being authentic and open is not confused, because sometimes we come to the table and we're not as prepared as we need to be, and we feel like it's being open about that lack of preparation. That's not what that means when we're talking about openness. We want to make sure we're maintaining our professional edge, which we have when we come online. And so the learner, we have to try to make sure we're able to open up and give the learner what they need. And the C's are really what we use when we talk about learner engagement. It's their ability to co-create with us, their ability to collaborate, to cooperate, to communicate, and to contribute. Learners need to feel part of the process, however we construct that, however we manage that. But these C's are very important for engagement. But you're not alone. You're part of a team. So getting learners ready in this uncertain world is a monstrous job, and it requires a team. And partnership is even more important now than before when we enter an all virtual space. And many of our institutions have opportunities for us because education is a system. It's really our role then to figure out, to become aware of the players in our partnership, the ones that can help us to support the holistic development of our students, the partners that can help us to boost the engagement of our students, the partners that know how to get us to work collaboratively with our learners, whether these are curriculum experts, teaching and learning experts, technology experts. We have a range of partners on most of our campuses and within the broader education community. So we want to be able to strengthen the quality of outcomes that we deliver for our students by leveraging our go-to partnerships and encouraging our learners to do the same, because they have partnerships within the education system as well. So we have partnerships with our program coordinators, we have our student success team, and this is a really essential team for skills development, particularly at a time like now. In a post-COVID world, skills like resilience are going to be critical. Managing time and schedule, managing stress, these are going to be critical skills. And we as faculty, we are specialists in our areas. We don't necessarily have the capacity to teach all of these skills, but we can partner with teams within our institution, even without our institution, to deliver these strategies. We have counselors that can provide emotional support and stress management. In a previous webinar, a number of our participants talked about how they were really struggling with providing emotional support. That's an area where we can partner and pass off the emotional coaching to someone who is skilled in that area, and so that we can focus on the areas in which we are more skilled. Our career center is another area that is a great resource for us. The one-on-one advising, having students develop self-awareness, having them focus on career readiness. These are skills like networking and even the job opportunities that students need to be exposed to, whether part-time or developing the career opportunities, job shadowing opportunities for the future. These are all part of the higher learning experience, and we may not be able to deliver that at the classroom level, but we can partner to make sure we bring it. When students are on campus roaming around, sometimes they bounce into these serendipitously. When they're in a virtual space, we become referrer in chief to almost make sure that they are aware of these other resources. Resources like the International Center or the library, just making sure they know about the externship offices, and industry partners are also part of our circle and our partnership. McGraw-Hill, for instance, pulling together teams to support us in our learning at this time. So you don't need to go alone. Use the support that's in place. Whether you're in a program here or there, you have support, both internally and externally. So leverage supports, leverage your partnerships, especially at this time. Many years ago, I thought it meant doing everything myself to be a good professor. I was teaching career development, and it used to take up a lot of my time just teaching resumes and going over resumes with students. And really, it reduced the amount of time and energy I had to cover other key skills within the course. When I began partnering with my career center and having a dedicated career advisor work with our students, they began to provide students even more relevant career information that was updated with their industry partners on an ongoing basis. And they spent time one-on-one with students outside of class time. The result was a win-win for our learners and a win-win for my relationship and that partnership. So students had an expert in that area to work on their resumes, and we had additional class time to develop other important skills. Partnerships are really, really important in education. We can't go this alone. There are too many skills that students need to develop, too many demands from industry and from higher learning. We need support, and we need to make sure we know our partners. It matters why you teach, what you teach, how you teach, who you teach, and now where you teach. And this is consistent with universal design for learning principles. The current climate has made a key shift. In the past, learners came to our institutions. Now we're bringing the institutions into their homes. There are unlimited resources online and at your institution to support this digital development so that you have the skills to teach where you need to teach. Some institutions have departments dedicated completely to helping faculty transition to the virtual classrooms. We have the Teaching and Learning Exchange at George Brown College, which is dedicated just to this. Other institutions are using similar supports or using their program coordinators. Know where you are in your own development and your digital fluency, and know how much support you need. But remember, it's not just the technology that matters. In this climate, our home environments are affecting the partnerships that we are developing or are capable of developing. Think about how conducive the home environment is for your students, and be mindful. Not all homes are created equally, so consider the environment your learners may live in. Some are parents, some are caregivers, some homes are loud, some are abusive environments. Not all students may be able to invite you into their homes. And so multiple means of partnering with students will be critical. Not everyone can turn their camera on at the time that you need them. So let's think about our partnerships, all the people we need to partner with, in order to deliver on the outcomes that we have in mind in this context, with a lot of pressure on our students and on us to deliver. Give your eyes a 5-minute break. We'll talk about purpose next. Purpose refers to the why. And Peter Drucker says there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. And that's why the purpose is a very important P in our higher learning puzzle. Skills and focus when we're thinking about the purpose are empathy, as we've alluded to earlier, goal setting, self-management, and a growth mindset. The reason they're open their homes to you is to achieve the goals that lead them to their purpose. The goals they want to achieve really speak to why they're in your class and how they will think about what course you're teaching. It's really important for us to be able to convey the purpose of our courses and how those align to their goals. And so we're going to need to know their goals. In these uncertain times, career is a high priority. It's always a high priority for our students. The literature lets us know that most students enter higher learning to prepare for career, to advance in their career or life goals. But for us and for them, we are all here now to learn a living, to earn, to learn. Very important for all of us to know the purpose for which our students are here, particularly now. And so goal setting is a priority in our programs. I usually post a video on my learning management system before I start up to introduce myself and share my goals, my hopes, and my fears. And then I offer the option to introduce themselves in writing or by video response using Flipgrid. But it's a best practice with your program team to sort of arrange goal setting as a program team so students don't go through goal setting exercises in all classes. So if no one else is doing it and you're doing it, then that's great. What we can't have is a student having to go into 5 classes or 6 classes doing goal setting activities. It would be better for us to collaborate and know who is doing goal setting and who is going to just integrate it into what we're doing. And so I know specifically that when students have clear goals, we can better communicate how our course or our program supports their goals, and we have to be aware of those. So they're more likely to stay in college, stay in our course, if there's a clear connection between what we're doing and where they want to go. And if they can see how our course is going to help them achieve their goal, then they will stay connected. There's a much higher chance that they stay connected. And that's why their goals are very important to us, no matter what course we teach. And so in order to know what their goals are, it's also important to know who they are. And the literature highlights that higher ed has a new majority of learners. The new majority is actually going to be amplified after this COVID, because COVID is impacting some groups more extraordinarily than others. This new majority defines students and learners who are over age 24, so just not coming out of high school, typically married, have gone to school in another program, they have children or other dependents. Many are female and many are racialized. And so that has to help with the context of learning and the context of supporting learning. So it's important to get to know your learners so that you can meet those unique needs. So we have to think about how can we actually provide each individual the quality learning they've come to expect based on their own needs. Because in the end, they don't actually care how much we know. until they know how much we care. So we need to know their stories. When you share your stories, you create a more trusted environment. Think of what story you could share that would help students get really comfortable, that they would know you and to know your values and feel connected to you, because this will inspire them to share more with you about them, offering you a window into their experiences. And when you have a window in and you can see more, then you can do more for them. Because they had stories before COVID. So COVID is a layered story, and the stories are changing very rapidly. And so staying connected and continuing those conversations is what's going to be different. And sometimes we start a conversation with our students under ordinary circumstances, and that's the story, and the story holds for the semester. Doesn't always, because it changes even without COVID, and now COVID is changing it even more rapidly. And so self-management is going to be uber critical to help our students stay on track. We have to leverage strategies, leverage partnerships to help our students stay on track. Use the skills that the institutions have, skills development frameworks like workshops on goal. Provide your students access to supports like the self-management tools, for instance, the semester at a glance calendar, the weekly time manager, which helps students to see all of their commitments at one glance or map out their week, and reference these things in the conversations and the class so that they are reminded to look at it. Perhaps show them how you use it. If we're partnering with self-management experts within the college, then we are going to be helping our students to stay on track. It's hard for them to stay on track in ordinary times. It's much harder during these extraordinary times. When students have access to these critical supports, they're much more likely to succeed. So even though we have so much content to cover, we can't skip over these critical steps to get to the content, because then we are not giving them the tools to be able to navigate the content. These critical steps will help them to better handle the content. And this is always good practice, but is absolutely essential in this context. The growth mindset discussion, you're aware, is based on the work of Dr. Dweck. And really to highlight that it is our mindset as well as our students' mindset that really matters here. And success in reaching our goals will be determined by the mindset to which the mind bring to the classroom. So your students should know the importance of their mindset to their success. Perhaps share videos, readings, invite a guest speaker to share with your students on mindset if this is an area that you're not comfortable with. During these times, there are no limits to who your guest speaker can be, because everybody's online. No travel is required. They can pop into you for 10 minutes and be somewhere else, just a click. So it's an opportunity to really open up the learning opportunity, the learning experience, and make it richer with experts. Perhaps Dr. Dweck herself can pop into your class for 20 minutes to discuss the mindset. How awesome would that be? Because we have to foster a culture within our courses where students understand that they have the ability to succeed, that they understand that to get the outcomes that they want, that more effort is what they have to put in, that they understand that challenges are going to come and we have no control over that. They have to embrace that and find ways to get beyond that and get supports. And we can refer them the supports that they need to get through that. That they have to persist in the face of setbacks, and that we are here as a partnership, as a team, to support them, and that we all are going to learn from our mistakes. This is important for students to know, that mistakes happen in learning. Mistakes are welcome in learning. We listen and we learn from our mistakes and we move forward. If we cultivate this kind of culture in the classroom, notwithstanding the topic, we're going to give our students a better foundation to build the content on. Many of our students experience what has been now dubbed as the COVID coaster of emotions and challenges. Be vulnerable and empathetic. Refer them to appropriate supports inside and outside of the institution. In the same way that I communicate to you that you're not alone, communicate to them that they're not alone at all. And sometimes we don't really know the resources that are available in our institutions, but we're going to need to be responsible for knowing these critical resources because of the time and the climate that we're in. So we have to get them to reset the mindset for learning every session because things are shifting and we don't know what we need to do. The environment's changing rapidly, emotions. I did this workshop last week, and by the time we're doing it again, we've had a racial uprising in the world. So there's so many things that shift critically. These things affect the students that you have. So the conversation we had last week, if I were having a class, we would need to update that conversation and add additional elements to the discussion to make sure that we are considering the emotional background of our learners. Take 5 seconds, take a deep breath. We'll talk about process next. Process is a systematic series of actions designed to achieve a particular outcome. Careful consideration and control of the process will improve the likelihood of achieving intended outcomes in any situation. But in this particular setup, it's going to be absolutely critical. Skills in focus here are organization, critical thinking, and problem solving. Important to note, it is a system. As I've mentioned before, you are part of a larger system. And I really want that to be the take-home message, which is why I'm repeating it. And it's important that we help the students to see where they are in your course and how your course fits into the whole puzzle, into their program and into the larger institutional model and into the employment picture and in the global picture. And that's true for both you and your learners. For you to zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture, the institution that you're part of, making sure that we see that the system is here to support the learning and we figure out how we can best tap into the system to support our needs and the needs of our learners. Your class provides structure and connection, which is needed by so many learners in this time. You have an opportunity to visit all of your learners right where they are. The challenge is to modify or recreate your content to fit this new context. This requires a shift from habitual ways of doing things, habitual ways of thinking about things. It's time to question your own content. How can you declutter your own course? What am I holding on to just because I've always covered it? Just because it's there and it's too much trouble to remove it now? Just because it would require me to change too many other things if I changed this one thing? Take the leap. Cut the fat. Reset. Make it fresh. Shift. Leverage your partnerships. Engage your students in the learning and co-creation process. Come up with content now that's relevant, contextualized, and meaningful. This is an opportunity. It's a special opportunity. What worked on land may not work online, but we can transition to something that's lean and clean and really hits the point right on the tip of the arrow. It's a special opportunity. And there are great partnerships, great supports structured to support us now to make this happen. Shift, and let's do this. Extraordinary times. And this is what Eleanor Roosevelt talked about. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Cut the fat. Let's make it fresh. Whatever you do online, keep it super simple. It's really about keeping the main thing the main thing. And these are not cliches in this context. The content is king, technology is a medium, and engagement is everything. But communication wins. It's critical to develop a communication plan for your course that is engaging and that is crystal clear, with multiple ways and means of conveying information. Create the processes to help students navigate the system. For instance, go here to the learning management system, let's say Blackboard. If not, go there to our class group. Then go do this, connect with your learning partner, or else email me. Otherwise, leave an email. If not, contact the program coordinator. Because students, if they try to reach one place at this time and there's a challenge with the technology or with any glitch, they feel like they've hit a roadblock and that's the end of it. But if you give them multiple means of accessing you or accessing the information right up front, then they know if this doesn't happen, there are other ways. So if you hit a roadblock, tackle your challenges, find ways to work around it, you can still have access. So your communication plan needs to be absolutely clean and clear, communicated in text, in writing rather, by video, by audio, however you can, so that everybody in your course understands that there's a way to reach you. Some content in person may not translate well online. So map your entire learning experience. You're the architect. How essential are the building blocks that you are using? Make them clear to your learners, the ones that are important. Leave the ones that aren't outside. Course outcomes. How many do you really need? How many can you really achieve in the course under these conditions? What are the core concepts that are deftly aligned to the outcomes that I must cover? What core content illuminate these concepts? And then only those that, activities that give us opportunities to practice these core concepts, to illuminate the critical content, and to prepare for assessments. And only the assessments that demonstrate the outcomes. And really, really stay on the tip of the point on the outcomes that you select. It's always good practice. This is not new. This is what we do. But it is essential in an online environment because it's so easy for them to mute, to turn off the video, to disengage with the content that they perceive to be irrelevant. And you can't walk around or call a name or look for them. They can disconnect very easily. So everything you do, you'll have to continue to convey the relevance to them, invite them to articulate the relevance of what you're doing back to you. Remember that there's a distinction between what is real and what is perceived in terms of the value of what we offer. So take time to reiterate the value of our offering. When we stay on the point and really clean up and streamline and cut the fat, it allows us to dedicate time to deep learning of core concepts. And that allows us to consistently communicate what they'll achieve in each session, how these activities support them, and how our outcomes are linked to their goals. Technology is the medium. And certainly it is the content for some programs, but in general, it is the medium. And learners have differential access to technology, to Wi-Fi, and sometimes differential access for other reasons. And so we're compounding that here. What you send to learners is not necessarily what's received. It's based on what they're receiving it on, the capacity on their end, the technological capacity, the personal technology. So begin with course housekeeping. Conduct a survey to learn about the level of access to technology. Use forms for confidential purposes. What is the purpose of the technology that you're using? When it comes to tech, less is more. Imagine each new technology as sort of another door that your students have to open when you're sending them for something. Imagine if you're sending them through 4 different doors to find something. Think about it in those physical, concrete ways, and it will help you to limit unnecessary technology. Introduce the technology that you will use in your course and make sure students have a rationale for each, particularly technology that's not essential. Communicate that technology will be phased in, clear instructions and demos will be provided. Most of your students may not need this, but a few students who are uncomfortable with technology will greatly value this. Avoid nice to have technology. Remember, technology is the medium at this time. And if it's the medium and the content, still bear that in mind. Establish the base. A central zone, that's your online classroom. Students tend to have a lot of questions, especially at startup and end of semester. Make sure they know where to go. Go to your learning management system. Triage everything from there. Help them to feel centered because they don't have that concrete physical space, but let them feel centered online. So when in doubt, go here. And then our responsibility is to make sure that the information in our learning management system is reliable, is accurate, it's current, and they are aware, not just one-on-one, they are speaking to each other about the content, and they have an opportunity to interact with the content, to speak to you about omissions, anything that needs to be updated. I recommend you set up a Q&A tab inside your classroom. Provide answers to questions that students ask you. So if a student asks you a question one-on-one, you may answer it right away, but it's a great opportunity to create a response to it in your Blackboard, in your learning management system, whether it's Canvas or whatever, because other students may have a similar question. Over time, you build up a database of responses to frequently asked questions, and students learn to check that before they come to you. They'll have this place where they refer each other. And what I've done as well is at the bottom of my Q&A section, I post the institution's Q&A link for questions that are outside of the scope of my course. And that's usually quite beneficial for them. So since you know learners have differential access, provide opportunities for different styles of learners. Provide examples, exemplars, peer groups, to partner with, and try to help them facilitate the connection before you send them offline. If they're shy, they're not going to be willing to go and reach out to each other. So put them in those small groups, visit the group, and build that rapport before you send them off. Lead the discussion and provide unexpected value. If they miss a live class, provide a presentation and notes for self-directed learning. And let the others know what they missed, the value that your class brings, why they can't afford to miss it. But think about, for instance, the mother of 3 who can't attend the live session. She can't attend it right now at this time of the day because the children are not asleep. They're noisy in the background. They're calling on her. That's why we need to balance synchronous and asynchronous information so that she can check it later in the night and when the kids are asleep and still get value from what we do. So we have to know our technology in order to be able to give the greatest benefit to our students. But I find that one of the keys when I support other faculty is that you need to know your settings. Most of the issues that we have with our technology are because we're not going into our settings and making sure that it's what we're asking for. Whether we want to start meetings with video or audio, whether we want to have people sitting in waiting rooms, or whether we want participants to talk to each other or just to the moderator. Those are things that you have to make sure you're comfortable with. Make sure you're comfortable with your settings. One tip I have with technology is to avoid unnecessary playback of video content during live sessions. So some students may not have the bandwidth. They may have constraints on their end so that what you are showing on your system and it looks like the video feed is great, but they're not receiving it that way. So it's a great idea to post the video ahead of class and say, make sure to watch this video before class time rather than running the video during the middle of the class. Then you can always reference it. For anyone who needs additional support with digital tools, McGraw-Hill is also offering an additional webinar in this series on remote learning, which will address some of those concerns. But I want to recommend that you join or create a community of practice for teaching technology. If you're new to teaching, this is absolutely essential. Practice using the technology with a smaller group of trusted colleagues. Some things like a breakout room, you can't practice a breakout room on your own. You have to practice it with other people in order for the system to allow you to breakout rooms. So it's very important for us to practice things and get feedback to see what's it like on the other side from the student experience side. Tackle your challenges together. If you have some experience, don't discount this. You still have a lot to learn. I've been participating in a couple of communities of practice on technology that I'm very comfortable with. And I'm really surprised that I was there to support them. And there was so much that I learned, because some of the things that I glazed over are things that were really important for people who are much more detail oriented. And I learned a lot from them. So it's very important that we are all working together, because we'll build our competence and our confidence together. And with technology, the shift is happening very quickly. Applications are getting updated on an ongoing basis. We have to keep pace. We have to collaborate to learn. We all won't get all of this together. I was on a webinar yesterday with Harvard, and they mentioned that they've asked Zoom to provide an opportunity for us to see two speakers at once for their debate programs. So many requests are going in, many updates are happening. So it's very important that we're working together to keep pace. And you remember that engagement is everything. And you know that someone that's logged in is not necessarily plugged in, because a lot of times when we log in, we aren't plugged in. But engagement inspires engagement. And because we know that not everyone is plugged in, we need to have a strategy to plug them in. And our own enthusiasm, when we demonstrate what engagement looks like, sounds like, feels like, we begin to inspire engagement in other students. And of course, they differ in the ways in which they're engaged, in their levels of motivation. And so we have to provide multiple ways that our learners will be engaged. And we have to monitor engagement, measure engagement, communicate on engagement. Engagement is a really key indicator of success in the classroom. So make sure that we're all focused on engagement, our own engagement, as well as our learners' engagement. Language is a really important tool of engagement. Knowing you were missed sounds better than hearing you missed class. We have to find strategies to distract our learners away from their busy lives, away from streaming movies, away from social media, away from everything that's happening in the world. Although we share weekly highlights through our announcements of all the fantastic things that happened in class, when we update their grades and feedback and invite them to come and see us, when we provide opportunities to collaborate and connect with each other, when we bring guest speakers in that they couldn't believe they missed, when we tell them who is coming and they show up for that, and when we acknowledge them by name, because we have a participant panel now, so we have a cheat sheet so we can always address our students by name. Bottom line, when we show that we care, when they know that we're noticing them and expecting them and caring about them, caring that they show up, they're more likely to log on and plug in. They're more likely to show up for us until they have the courage to show up for themselves. But even so, remember, if a baby's crying for attention, we lose. Because what we can't see behind them is what's in front of them, and that's what they're focused on. So let us find multiple means to support our learners, because some like to talk, some want to text. Small group, a large group. Is it a short session or a long focused session? Do I want independent learning or I want to collaborate with my colleagues? Do I want to follow the lesson plan structure or I want to get off track sometime and have side conversations? Do I want it live or not? These are all the challenges we have. And how do we meet these diverse needs? I don't know. But that's the challenge that's in front of us. And I think if we partner, if we collaborate, and if we keep the purpose for which we're working in focus, I think we can work together to get this done. Give your eyes a final break, take a deep breath. When we come back, we're going to go to the final section, product. In a nutshell, our product is what we deliver. In this context, 4 skills are critical: confidence, professionalism, ownership, and digital fluency. Some areas of our product that I want to highlight are just the impact on their lives, the skills they develop, the meaningful lessons they learn, and the valued connections that we facilitate. and readiness for their next steps. If it's graduation, if it's a job, if it's another program, our responsibility is to provide that program readiness, that product rather. So when we engage our students in exploring and learning new digital tools as part of the process, some may be experts already, some can teach us, but we're learning together. And ultimately, our students and us will develop a range of skills that will not only benefit us to transition to online learning, but we're working on skills to transition to the new world order post-COVID, where digital fluency will not be an option. So we want to make sure we're choosing the right mix for our learners. They have to own this process. Ownership of learning here means you're motivated, you're engaged, you're self-directed. And sometimes motivation and engagement is challenging. These are tough times. But motivation and engagement are critical, self-direction critical when we transition to online delivery. And that is why we need to provide them with those self-management supports. And that is why we need to know the purpose that they're here, their goals. Because in the absence of a clear purpose, they may lack motivation. Virtual learning requires greater autonomy, and we need greater connection. So we want to make sure to remember that students now lack the ongoing contact and the informal information exchange that would happen on campus. So that's added to their usual struggles. We have these COVID-related struggles. So we need to stay connected with them, do our best to help keep them on track, help them take ownership of their learning, but also take time for your own reflection. Not only on what you are offering your students, but on what you're offering to yourself. And don't be afraid to write like a weekly reflection and share with your students on how your connections with them are going, the challenges you're having, the surprising elements of the feedback, things you thought were working really well and were surprised to find out aren't going well. Share that. I found that the students really enjoy reading my reflections when I share it with them. If that works for your class, that's great. But try to find ways to help them stay connected. Remember though, you can't give them anything if you don't have you. And what you offer is truly invaluable. So our learning community needs you and your learners need you. So please take care of you as well. Confidence is a feeling of self-assurance, which results from your appreciation of your own abilities, your own qualities. Confidence is communicated in your welcoming style, in your effective management of the process, in the quality of your guidance and mentorship, in the way you open up and tell your stories, the way you engage with others' stories, the way you partner with other professionals, the way you focus on your learners' purpose, the way you pivot when necessary to serve their needs. Ultimately, your confidence is communicated by your ability to help them achieve their goals in your course and contribute to other life goals they have. Don't let the tech block your confidence in what you are already an expert in. You are here because you're already a pro. Pros plan and they practice, always. The new context is no different. We will rise to this challenge, grow and get better as a result because this is what we do together. In your next session, review the key things that you want to add to your toolbox. Brush up on that key thing you want to improve. Remember, you are a professor. You are the pro in the product that we offer. You are the pro. Bring your confidence with you online. Include yourself in the offering. Don't let the tech block your teaching skills. In your next session, review the key things. Then step up to your desk. Look into your camera. Make eye contact with your students. Be confident, be engaging, and be the pro that you already are. Welcome to the new normal. It's here to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, everyone. So we are getting to the end of today's webinar, and then we've captured all the questions you asked. throughout the session. And we will share the FAQ with you in a follow-up email along with a webinar recording and a post-survey link. So before you go, I would like to remind you that McGraw-Hill is here for you. So please reach out to us if you need any help with transitioning your course online. Also, we have wonderful webinar session lined up for you covering digital tools, course delivery, academic integrity, and some discipline-specific topics for your remote teaching. So please visit us at mheducation.ca. So, okay, I'll wrap up today's webinar now. So have a wonderful weekend and hope to see you at the next webinar. Thank you so much, guys.